All right. I was glad to hear James mention sort of a point that it would be good to hear some of these messages repeated. I was hitting someone beside me this morning saying, the guy from Facebook stealing all my thunder. He, many of the points that he was making were very similar. So I want to talk a little bit about, what's changing, what's going on, and really what's bringing me here to the table today with you all. The data explosion, the changing role of today's CIO, the IT departments, maybe where your students are going to go in and work. What are those implications for IT education? And then a little bit about what NetApp can provide, maybe to help you in terms of infusing some of that content or updating some of your curriculum. I am going to take a leap of faith here and see if I can play a video. The internet connection was a little weak up front, but if this works, I want you to pay close. This is about a 1.5-minute video for one of our customers.
Suncor has about 15,000 employees. We were an assembly of businesses that have been bought and put together. We had a DNA of high cost, low speed, high complexity, and we wanted to switch it around to low cost and high value. We set a target and an aspiration that we didn't want to measure ourselves against other insurers or other banks. We wanted to measure ourselves against the best companies. We looked to NetApp to help us materially change the way we do work. IT is not just a piece of the business, it is very integral to the business success. We've gone from really 7 data centers to 2, from doing a couple hundred video conferences a month across the company to 7,000 a month. We can deliver our products faster, we've set people's expectations higher. We've transformed the way we deliver technology into services. We've taken a net of 30% of our cost down, and then that gave us more money to go start more development projects. I'll give one example. We had a grad that came in on weekends and developed a very elegant mobile banking platform and came to me and said, geez, I think this will work. And in the first month, we did $250 million in transactions over our mobile platform. The amount of change we have going into our ecosystem every quarter has more than tripled. You start to create an enabling environment for people to get inspired to do things they hadn't thought they could do. And there's a huge energy and momentum behind the IT group really being the future for the company.
Storage is foundational to innovation. That's why innovative cultures are built on NetApp.
Excuse a little bit of the sales plug, but there's really a couple points that I wanted to take. Really, one of the last messages, that IT is the future of the company. That IT is integral to the business success. I think the gentleman from Facebook mentioned how, as he was developing, he was really learning his technology skills and knew nothing about the business. And if you look at the role of IT today, the CIO, the IT staff, their mission is really about enabling business. And so if you have that understanding, that joint set of skills and understanding, I think it's really going to make either your students or any employee that much more effective as they work in the company. So, one of the things, if I'm a professor and someone's up here, someone earlier mentioned, we're going to hear a sermon or a lecture. I won't make a point at any minute, but if I was being told you need to update your curriculum, we need to change how we're doing, the students need to learn new skills, well, you certainly wouldn't want to be changing into a fad that we're just like a butterfly going to the next flower and then it expires in 6 months. It's a lot of work to get the faculty up to speed, maybe the lab, update the curriculum, find the right teaching materials. So I really want to be assured that if I'm investing my time and effort, it's going to be something that goes. I guess I would argue, if you look at this data explosion, I've just found, at this point, hearing about terabytes and petabytes, almost everything I'm reading now is exabytes and zettabytes. It's really moved on in terms of the volume. And so if you're looking forward, I really think storage and having your students understand this data explosion and the implications this has for storage and data management, it's going to put them in good stead for the next several years. This is not a fad. In fact, on the plane out, I read a short study. Cisco just came out with something called the Global Cloud Index. I just want to take a second and just read you 2 points. In 2010, cloud computing traffic totaled 130 exabytes. It was 11% of data traffic in the world. data center traffic. Cisco estimates that it will reach 1.6 zettabytes, more than 33% of all data center traffic by 2005. To put that in a little perspective, 1.6 zettabytes is approximately 1.7 billion terabytes, or the equivalent of 1.6 trillion hours of online high-definition video. We would say that's a shitload of data. So, from a technical perspective. And so, it's a booming area. If you look at just your private lives or your public lives, you have, the initial copies of materials. You then have backup copies, archive copies, disaster recovery copies, what you might need to have for compliance. It's just taking off online video. We'll talk a little bit about big data, multimedia data. It's wonderful for a business like NetApp, but it's really creating a challenge for IT. So if you're an IT director, you've typically had a dedicated architecture where you have your storage, networks, and applications in kind of this hierarchical architecture. You cannot keep up with this pace of data by just throwing more storage at it. The economies of scale, the economies of your budget just won't allow you to do that. You're being pressured by business for IT to be more agile, to be more innovative, to support new lines of business. And I think that the statistic is something like 70% of IT budgets are spent just on keeping the lights on, paying your licenses, paying your maintenance, paying your electricity for your data center. So that leaves just a small amount for doing the innovation that you're really being pressured to deliver to the business side of the house. In fact, a lot of the businesses that we talk to, I think this is an IDC study, just from last year, but most of the businesses are reporting that their data growth is growing at 50% a year. Their IT budgets are growing at, maybe the high point here is not even 6%. So if you are not able to just keep up with the growth of data by buying more equipment, building up new data centers, and trying to keep pace with it along those lines. So, move right along. IT's facing a variety of challenges. Running out of power, cooling space here in California, green IT is a very hot area. In the EU, there's a lot of stipulations and requirements about it. The economic pressures, as I mentioned, the 70% average, the ability to adapt. And really, I think what we're hearing about today is, the need to develop forward-looking skills in IT architectures. As the shift happens in industry, in terms of how they're building their IT infrastructure, the skill sets that your students are going to need is going to change, and it's going to force you all to maybe update your own skills, some of the curriculum, or certainly how you approach teaching your students. The bottom line is that, IT folks are looking for alternatives. And what's really driving all that you're seeing about cloud computing and virtualization is this concept around shared services. The idea of having the dedicated architectures within your data center to serve different departments is just no longer viable. So you're starting to see folks look at external approaches, public clouds, Amazon, different cloud providers. You're seeing where data centers or IT staff are now looking at private clouds, basically where they're building cloud infrastructures within the firewall to provide their IT services to their departments. And then you're going to hear the term hybrid clouds, which is probably where many will end up, where they have both private clouds and public clouds. So, but business as usual is not the choice. And so what you're seeing is this transitioning from virtualization to cloud. I think it's clear why there's folks like NetApp, EMC, Cisco, VMware, Citrix are all here this week. And we partner closely with VMware, with Citrix. One of the challenges as you move from this application-based style, and this is probably where still 50, 60, 70% of the IT infrastructure is. This is a snapshot of where we're today. But virtualization is quickly being embraced. Server virtualization, storage virtualization, the economics of it, where you can go from one physical server to 100 virtual servers, basically with software, with no additional footprint, space, or power, are just too compelling. So virtualization is being embraced. They're moving into different zones and looking at, can we develop public clouds, private clouds? Now, I guess just in terms of a quick definition, I don't want to assume that you all know, but it's in the news so much. But basically, private clouds are behind the firewall where the IT folks are developing a shared service infrastructure to deliver to their company internally. A public cloud would be something like Amazon Cloud Infrastructure, Gmail, where you're going externally and bringing in certain services. And then hybrid clouds are just a strategy where you may be using both as part of your IT operations. And if you look at, you just have to pick up the news, pick up the newspaper, Business Week, even if you're not picking up, the technical papers, the headlines around cloud. IBM expects to generate $7 billion in clouds. HP has moved from just being a hardware, software vendor to support the infrastructure for cloud to now actually delivering cloud services themselves. Amazon is probably the best known, one of the largest cloud providers. But, businesses are looking at it. There's some hiccups. Amazon did get kind of a black eye if there's a power outage and that goes down and you've relied on an external vendor to deliver your IT infrastructure. What's your service level agreement? What's the uptime? One of the main concerns that we hear of limiting the adoption of cloud is security. A gentleman from Facebook mentioned something about secure multi-tenancy. And basically, in a cloud, you think of, it's an apartment building. In an apartment building, you all share the heat, you share the water, you share the infrastructure, but the people in room apartment 2B theoretically can't get the food in apartment 2A. And real secure multi-tenancy, a cloud environment, is you're using a shared infrastructure, but you're using a secured environment that keeps your data separate from the other tenants in that apartment building, so to speak. So, why should you care? If you buy my premise that all this is going, what does this mean to you? Well, one of the schools that we work with here locally is San Jose State University, and at San Jose State, in their computer science department, they added a concentration in cloud and networking in cloud last year. That's a 4-course concentration. So you take the regular computer science degree, and then you take one of these 4 courses. You have to take all 4 courses in the concentration. One is on cloud, advanced cloud services, network storage and network management infrastructure. But I think the bottom line is that what you really want to be exposing your students through their curriculum and their hands-on work is the environment that they're going to run into when they graduate. And ideally, they're going to have the skills that are going to allow them to land running, so to speak. So if you look at, again, if I was an educator and I'm trying to determine how I might want to reshape my curriculum, look at what are the CIOs ranking. This is from last year, from Gartner's CIO survey. Cloud computing, virtualization, business intelligence, enterprise applications. There hasn't been a whole lot of shift in terms of the top tier area. All of these require storage infrastructure. As you start moving to virtualization, you may hear of something called virtual sprawl. As you start to have 1,000 virtual servers, you still need to have the storage back end to support what you're putting on the virtual server. So from a business perspective, for us, this is great. But from an IT management, it really starts to become a challenge. I guess if there's almost maybe one slide that if you were to take away, I'd look at this. And, these are, in terms of the changing agenda within IT, this is what CIOs, this was a survey done by the MIT Sloan School, the business school at MIT, last year. And they're asking, what do they need to know more about? So if I'm an IT staff, the people that I'm going to hire, the people that I'm looking to bring in, I want to know about these topics. Cloud computing, analytics, server virtualization, desktop virtualization, VDI, probably many of you covered, enterprise storage. So this is, if you're looking at the agenda of what's keeping CIOs up at night, what are the main topics, this is really the skill set for what they're looking for in people that they're bringing on board. Let me just ask you, if you're looking at this set of topics, how many of your curriculum do you think align with this pretty well at this time? With your IT classes, do they dovetail very well? Is there a big disconnect? Just a show of hands. Who thinks they're aligned over 50%? 20%. Yeah. All right. So again, and I don't want to be preaching, but in terms of look at this this is where industry is grappling with today, or the IT industry is today. Over the next 3 to 5 years, this is really going to be the driving agenda in terms of the technologies. And you look at the companies that are being successful, they're the ones that are lining up right along these topics. And I guess one point, I know, I think we have some visitors from China right here, but I know most of the folks here are probably from the States. But this is a global phenomenon. This is not just a U.S., developed world issue. So this transformation in terms of the shift in IT, we're seeing is globally. The video that I showed you of Suncorp is an Australian bank. And so the same issues that people here in San Francisco are grappling with, we're working with universities in Singapore, the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, schools in New Zealand. It's a worldwide phenomenon. Now, part of that is one thing that has changed, and storage. I should have asked probably at the beginning. How many of you know NetApp? As I go around the country and talk to schools, I was at an Engineering Deans Institute a few months back. Spoke with maybe 60 deans. 3 had heard of NetApp, and one of our VPs was a Purdue graduate and was on their advisory board. But beyond that, no one has heard of us. Storage is like plumbing. We're not sexy like Google and IBM or Microsoft are well known. And so, storage is fundamental or foundational to enterprise computing, but it doesn't quite have the buzz. What is getting attention among the IT staff now is because of the data explosion that we talked about earlier, the number 2 IT spend in terms of their hardware, software is now storage. So if you can figure out ways to make your storage more efficient, if you can use tools like data compression, storage efficiency, deduplication, thin provisioning. So instead of having 10 copies of every document that you create, if you can just capture the changes to that document, you start to incur savings immediately. You stop and think of something like Sarbanes-Oxley for the financial services industry, where they have certain compliance guidelines. Somebody sends in an email to Goldman Sachs and has an inquiry about their account. They have that initial email. They have to have a backup of them. They have to have an archive of them. They have to have a disaster recovery set up somewhere in Utah in another data center of that. Someone takes that email and sends it to their boss has now got a copy. Typically, any transaction might have 8 to 10 copies going across a company at any given time. So if there's ways that you can optimize how you're storing and managing that data, it starts to translate to real dollars. Yeah, have any of you heard of this expression, big data? 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I might have heard it. The gentleman from Facebook mentioned Hadoop is one big area. Now, at least within NetApp, we hear this all the time. And basically, big data is data sets, data files that are larger than what the traditional tools for storage, management, and analyzing data allow you to do. So if you think in terms of analytics, these huge data warehouses where they're trying to sort data and, the concept of finding a needle in a haystack. When you have these huge amounts of data and Citibank is on the phone with you and trying to determine whether to authorize your credit card approval. They're going against a huge data set. So they're developing new tools on this. Bandwidth, a term I just recently heard, high ingest. At NetApp, we had to have a dedicated engineering team. Bandwidth is now no longer the bottleneck. It's the huge bandwidth. We're getting data at such a speed, we had to develop new storage technologies to be able to capture it. Things like special effects in full motion video and movie production. The volume of data that they're generating. We work a lot with the Defense Department, and I'm sure many of you have seen these the drones that are flying across Pakistan, Afghanistan. 3 years ago, they used to take black and white images every 10 seconds. Then they started taking full motion, then they started taking color. Then they started taking full motion video. Now they're taking full motion video, infrared, real time, feeding that back to some guy in Alexandria, Virginia, who's making a decision in real time whether to blow up a car driving along the back roads of Afghanistan. Huge data ingest and intelligence requirements. Data content, or even things, seismic, all of this natural gas. Have you heard of fracking, the hot term? Well, there's these huge reservoirs of natural gas. How do you identify them? What are the seismic indicators as to where you should drill? So when they generate these geophysical images or whatever, it's huge data. Content, healthcare. My daughter, she's 11, dislocated her shoulder a couple of weeks ago playing basketball. She had a bad fall. She's a great athlete, but she's pretty clumsy. So she's had a couple broken bones in here and there. So we're at the doctor. They pull up her file. So they've had everything that's happened to her since she's a baby. Now she's hoping that, when she's 25 and she has to go get examined for something, they're going to have all that data. You're not throwing anything away. So, the content and the size of data is now challenging even companies like us, EMC, IBM, and high-performance computing. So again, I guess part of my pitch is the trend in terms of the explosion of data is something that's going to continue, and that if you were to think about shifting some of your content, it might be worth it. I guess the point here is really it's not if, it's kind of how. So, just quickly for NetApp, this has been a great opportunity as companies have moved to virtualized environment. It's allowed our business to grow and to become one of the larger providers. And I guess the point here I wanted to make, and really what we're trying to do is, we've been very successful. If you're familiar with the Gartner Magic Quadrants, Gartner does an analysis of all kinds of industry, computing industry vendors, and basically what they look at is you want to be in this magic quadrant, the upper quadrant, because what they're looking at is, do you have the vision and the innovation to be forward-looking, and then do you have the ability to execute and deliver that? So you don't want to be in this corner, kind of thing. And so we're thrilled that we're on this level, but what that allows us to do is we're working with businesses around the globe, and we're getting a good sense of what are the best practices for deploying, for updating data centers, for deploying cloud infrastructure, for managing your storage environment, for handling that data explosion. And so part of what we're hoping to take from the business and customer learnings that we have out in the real world, I guess, is to bring them into the academic arena. So that's kind of, I wanted to set the stage, I guess, and make the case why maybe you should at least pay a little attention to what's going on, and maybe listen to NetApp. So what we did is, literally a year ago, January of 2011, we launched this Industry Academic Alliance program. Certainly, if you look at Cisco and IBM and many of the other vendors here, we're the new kids on the block. Certainly, probably one of the newest initiatives. And basically, what we're trying to do is very much what many of the other programs are, is to provide resources that allow interested faculty to infuse storage and data management concepts into their curriculum. Typically, over this past year, it's been mostly into existing courses where rather than create a new class on storage, they might want to say, well, I'm teaching computer information systems, introduction to MIS, introduction to computer information systems, and I'd like to put in 2 weeks worth of storage. And that's where we've been gaining traction. I can tell you that, when I joined NetApp a couple of years ago from Oracle, when I talked with, as I was interviewing, they said, well, we want MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, and, when can you sign them up? And, let me be candid. I don't want to say that they're arrogant, but there was a little bit in talking with some of these schools that they know more about storage than us. Where we've been successful is working with Chico State, San Jose State, East Carolina State, Tidewater Community College. The tier of institutions whose mission is really to teach people who are going to graduate and go out into the marketplace, not get a PhD and become the next researcher. So that's where we've been successful so far. Our goals, honestly, I mentioned, no one knows NetApp, or very few people know NetApp, so one of our goals is a little bit of visibility. But both the Facebook gentleman and James mentioned one of the studies here in California that, while there's a huge amount of unemployment, over 50% of the businesses that they spoke to mentioned that they couldn't find people with the right skill set. We hear this from our customers all the time, and that the idea of finding storage savvy employees that have an understanding of storage dynamics, storage technologies are scarce. So I can certainly validate that point. We do sell to higher education, so I work with a lot of our account execs. They're dealing with the CIO folks. I'm typically on the academic side, so we do want to bring our program into where we do business as well. And NetApp, one thing, my last pitch for NetApp is NetApp about a month ago was rated as the third best global company to work for in the world by Great Places to Work and Fortune magazine. And part of that, I think, is really tied to our culture. I think Google was number 2. I think number 1 was. But it was a pretty prestigious list. We were thrilled to even make the cut. But, the idea of giving back to the academic community is certainly consistent with our overall culture. So basically, what can we provide to you? So if after listening to my pitches, if these were interested, what is it that you could provide to us? We can immediately offer you and your students access to a library of web-based courses. I'm actually part of NetApp University, the training arm of NetApp. We train our customers, our employees, and our partners. We're an 11,000-person company. About 6,000 people, those are engineers. Every new engineer that comes in goes through a boot camp and through a training, a new college hire program. So even if they're coming out of one of the top schools, we still want them to have an understanding of the engineering approaches at NetApp. So like you, we develop curriculum, we develop courses, we have programs, and we have some great web-based classes. I've got one that's our most popular, something called Storage Fundamentals. It's a 90-minute interactive web-based class. Pretty vendor neutral. We hear from a lot of professors, look, I don't want a NetApp or an IBM or EMC sales pitch. And so this walks you through the evolution of storage. What's a storage area network? What's network attached storage? What's cloud storage? Storage as a service. It's interactive. It engages with the students. So we've got an array of classes that we can provide there. We've actually developed something called, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a demo for you, something called a Learning Resource App, an LRA. And so what an LRA is, honestly, it's a tool that people in our group have developed for us to package and deliver topical content. So just this week, we finished one on private clouds. And in that LRA, we've got 2 or 3 white papers. We've got 2 or 3 YouTube videos explaining what private clouds are. And then we've got a deep dive technical white paper on how you build a private cloud based on Microsoft Hyper-V virtualization software. It's very technically detailed. We've got a video from Microsoft that goes along with that. And then we've actually built a set of test questions and answers. So for a professor or instructor who wanted to bring in maybe 12 hours, a couple weeks worth of private cloud content, it's a little module, a teaching nugget that can be integrated very easily. We have a virtual simulator. NetApp's secret sauce is really software. If you went into a data center and you look at these great big racks, you'll see the racks of the storage devices. But really where our bread and butter is the software. And it's an operating system called Data on Tap. Now, as we do our engineering across the company, it's very expensive for us to try to create engineering labs in India and Ireland and across the U.S., RTP here in California. So our engineering groups use this virtual simulator to do quality testing, performance testing. And so it allows you, probably at about a 90–95% level to deploy to your students a production world-class storage management environment. So they had to do storage provisioning and assign storage to a different department or set up a disaster recovery approach. And we're developing a set of exercises that you can weave into that as well. We've got teaching materials. We've even got one of my colleagues has written a book called The Evolution of the Storage Brain. And it's a great, easy read. It talks about, it uses the brain as an analogy of holding all the information for the body, and the storage is the repository for all the information for enterprise computing. It's an easy read, and we make that available if you wanted to provide it to your students. I just shipped, I think, 56 copies to NC State. They're actually kicking off a class on enterprise storage next week, and that's going to be the textbook for that particular class. This is just again, I apologize, I'm not going to be able to do the demo, but if any of you interested, I'm going to be around the next couple of days. I could show you off on my laptop. But this is what the Learning Resource app looks like. So you click on Introduction to Cloud, it cascades down to different materials. It can be multimedia. It can connect you to RSS feeds, blogs, YouTube videos. So it's very interactive. It's a neat tool. We're using it increasingly for our own internal training. And the two on the cloud, and we've got one on virtualization, are the first external versions of it. I mentioned this data on tap simulator, the vSim. What is it? Why is it fun? It gives you the experience of managing a storage environment with all of the, most of the features of our actual software without deploying it. You don't have to do any licensing or systems management, and easy. This is the sort of a snapshot of the learning account. So if you said, geez, I'd be interested, I got 25 students, I'd love for them to take that storage fundamentals class. All we need is a list of their names and emails. We set them up with a learning account, and we send you back the login and passwords that you can distribute it to them. So in 1 week, instead of telling your students to go read Chapter 9 in a textbook about storage systems, you tell them to log in here, they go in, their account's all set up, we can add 2, 3, 4 classes, and off they go. This is just some feedback from this past semester. We had, I think, 3 groups of three classes at East Carolina University. Took 2 of our classes, the Storage Fundamentals and a Data on Tap one. And I guess the middle one is the one that I love. It was so much better than the textbook. It made it much more interesting. The visual aids to describe the components. We're in the age of I'm sure most of your students coming in are very much the MTV texting, thumbs going, ADD kind of attention. This kind of appeals to them a little bit more than a dry textbook, I guess is my point. I think this is one of the last slides. Now, I think one of the things that NetApp does that's a little unique, many of the other programs, they're wonderful. I'm pretty knowledgeable. I worked at Oracle, PeopleSoft, and a couple other companies managing their academic environments, their academic partnership programs, so I'm familiar with them. And we took a little different approach. Rather than, everything I've described to you, you don't have to take the full package. If you say, this sounds great, we'd love to have a guest lecture. Out of my semester, we'll give you 2 hours on a Tuesday night, 7 to 9. Let's have someone come in and talk and do a WebEx on storage system. We'd be glad to do that if the logistics can work out. If you came to us and said, well, look, as an instructor, I'd like to take the classes myself, maybe get up to speed. I'm going to develop a lecture too, and that's about it. We'd be thrilled to work with you at that level. If after taking the courses you say, these are excellent, I can see how I could very easily merge these in my syllabi or over the course of the semester, we can do that. So it's almost like a value chain, as you move up the value chain. If you want students to actually do some of the hands-on work, we can make available our virtual simulator. So it's really up to you. You tell us, if you're interested in bringing in some of these content and materials, I can send you a little package that'll give you a sense of some of these materials, or set you up with a NetApp Learning account. Literally kick the tires, check out the materials, and if you think they're useful, we can make them available in the quantities for your students. One of the I mentioned a little bit about giving back. We do try to. We're thrilled to be here. That James invited us to attend. But the academic community is that publisher parish orientation among a lot of faculty. So we do try to sponsor conferences. We do look to partner with faculty. If we can, I'd much prefer a year from now. If you have the event again, I'd much prefer to be funding two professors to be up here talking about their experience working with NetApp, rather than having me tell you how wonderful we are. So, we're looking for the opportunities to expand. We were just at the Grace Hopper Women in Computing Conference, I guess last month, in November, up in Oregon. And I mentioned to some of the Engineering Deans Institute, this is in Hawaii this year. My boss has told me I am not going to Hawaii, so we might take that one off the list. But as I mentioned, these are some of the schools, the early adopters that we started working with. Ball State University, the professor there actually teaches a class in disaster recovery, so we've provided a lot of information around disaster recovery. At NC State, it's part of our challenge. And really one of our motivations is when we were launching this program, I would go in and look at the program and course offerings for many of the schools that we're talking to, whether it's in the business school in MIS, in an IT department, or in computer science, often in engineering. In 95% of the cases, the word storage is almost never mentioned. Rarely is there a dedicated storage class. What we would often see is many schools who are like in a Cisco Networking Academy or the VMware Academy, they might add a week or two around storage to talk about how storage supports the network layer. But, really, at most of these institutions, what we're doing is building in content into existing courses where they're, 2-3 weeks worth of storage content just to round out the materials. And this is my last slide. This was a study I saw, I guess on ZDNet or whatever. It was talking about the major shifts. I thought it was, kind of consistent with our topic here today. The shifts in information technology. And if you look at, the user interface, next-gen mobile, IT delivery is moving from the data center to the cloud, email and social media, Twitter and all that. And, data's going from the databases and BI analytics into BI, consumer-generated data. So this is kind of the direction that it's going, but the underpinning of all this, it's all driving the demand for storage. All of those tweets, all of that social media. How many of you are, subscribed to iTunes? We provide the storage infrastructure to Apple iTunes, to Apple iTunes streaming infrastructure, to Yahoo email. So as those kinds of social media and consumer technologies are embraced, there's still going to be that underlying plumbing. And so as they say, well, it's not maybe as sexy as Google and some of the Apple and Facebook interfaces. It's really one of the core part of the computing. So I think, so with that, I'd be glad. I think we have 5 minutes or so. I'd be glad to answer any questions. I am going to be around today and through tomorrow to the end of the conference, and be thrilled to talk with any of you. But it's kind of a whirlwind tour of storage and NetApp, and hopefully be useful.
Just a couple of real quick ones. I looked at your webpage. You apparently your focus is on providing the materials and software that allow people to access the cloud, but you also provide cloud storage as well.
Well, we are not a cloud service provider.
You provide the gateway to the cloud.
Well, we basically think of, there's the old analogy. They say, who made all the money in the prospecting when the gold prospecting?
Right.
It wasn't the guys that were going out there digging the gold. It was the trains and the shovels and Levi's. So we're selling the Levi's to the. That's my analogy.
But you also have the training for those of us in academia. You have.
Yeah. So very much the same classes, the exact same classes that we offer. Web-based classes we can sign you up for. We have instructor-led classes where if someone's willing to take the time to go for 3, 4, 5 days, we can do that as well. And we're actually just finishing up all this material that I've talked to. It's free, and we make it available without any constraints. But for our instructor-led materials, we're just putting an academic use license together. It's a one-page document that says, if we provided you our teaching guides and our exercise guides for some of those classes, that you wouldn't use it. You have to use it for only teaching purposes. You can't use it for commercial purposes. Yes, sir.
Question and a comment. For those of you that don't know me, I work for the community college campus office. I fund purpose programs that fund most people's courses. How many people here are community college instructors? How many of them are instructors in California? All of you are partially funded, if not all, through purpose funding. What concerned me is when he asked, raised his hand, asked how many people were actually teaching cloud-based computing and virtualization. All of your funding is going to be performance driven. That is, if you're aware of the gainful employment data we've had, if you're not teaching with job aren't finding jobs, you're not going to get funded. So you have to update and innovate the courses across your campus to meet the needs of industry, where jobs are. You're still teaching desktop support, there's not any jobs there. High school teaching. You have to innovate, you have to update, you have to cutting edge, you have to retrain your faculty, and you have to innovate for, within 3 years, the course learning on purpose, because they're going to start cutting funding. They're already aware that gainful employment is going to start cutting federal loans and grants to students for purpose programs if they're not getting jobs. If you can't show hard data that they're doing high budget the jobs aren't out there. So where the word to the wise, start innovating now because they're going to pull the plug in about 3 years.
Along that line, I think the gentleman from Facebook mentioned it. When I talk to a lot of professors, they say, well, we would love to have our graduates come work for NetApp or for Oracle or IBM. That's just the pinnacle of the pyramid. And I think with James, kind of showed that pyramid with the users or whatever. The real sweet spot for your students are our customers. They're the people that are deploying the storage environments. They're the people that are grappling with this. So, the few that might come work for one of these technology companies is great. But companies across all industries, financial services, energy, healthcare, academia, are all adopting these technologies. And so, broaden your perspective in terms of where the opportunities, if that's such a critical metric, there is a broad opportunity there. Yes, sir.
Just to build on that, with respect to offering the courses, and a lot of what we want to do at the community college level is give students a hands-on experience with the equipment. So what model do you think is successful in terms of providing some type of equipment at the facility? So again, we may get a purchase grant for a course if we apply in time. But we have some limited funding to purchase the type of equipment. But again, it's important to have our students get their hands on components. So is it possible to maybe you donate older generation equipment or something to that effect to get that into their hands?
It's a great question. I mean, we have looked at that. We do have a donation program. We've got a group, advanced technology group that does make equipment donations more for research rather than teaching. But I guess what I would suggest, probably the easiest way, is to use our virtual simulator. You have a PC lab that's already set up. So rather than have to buy our gear, pay for the maintenance, have a database or systems administrator, one of our classes is a 6-hour web-based course on data on tap. Our virtual simulator and many of the exercises are built right into it. We can provide you the simulator, you can set it up in your lab, and the students, they take that 6-hour web-based class. It's kind of like driver's ed. It gives them a sense of the look and feel, the navigation, and what the tools can do. And then you deploy the virtual simulator in your existing environment. Now, there's a certain configuration and install guide, but it doesn't, you don't have to have a high-performance computing lab to be able to run the virtual simulator. So as a baby step, I would suggest that would be a good initial step. If you gain traction and really see great, you wanted to have a broader focus, then we might look at actually deploying a full-blown lab. But that virtual simulator is a nice, easy-to-deploy initial step. Yes, sir.
How do you make your money?
in terms of the.
What's the business? I'm trying to figure out, you're giving us all this stuff that, so I can't sell their product unless there's trained people out there to use it. Okay, that's the Cisco model too. I mean, that's the Cisco Academy model. Are we talking about?
Absolutely. There's a great Harvard Business Review article on, strategic philanthropy where they quote John Chambers. Why are you giving out network gear to high schools in Uzbekistan? And his response was, if people in Uzbekistan don't understand the power of our network and router technology, I don't have a market in Uzbekistan. So my business model, I am not measured by revenue, and I like to position our program as enlightened self-interest. That, if we can do good, it's going to grow the pie for us. And literally, we hear from our customers and our partners that they can't buy more of our gear and deploy it unless they have the people to manage it. So it's not 100% Andrew Carnegie philanthropy here. There's a little business model in there, but it's a good deal. Let me put it that way. Okay? Well, thank you so much.